Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Silicon Sounds, audio for the rest of us. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of reviewing an IEM from a company I've not heard of before, and I'm sure many of you have not either. The company's name is ZiiGaat, and this is the ZiiGaat Linooul. It's a new name, at least to me, in the IEM space. ZiiGaat on their site states that they've been designing OEM products for numerous audio global brands for over 10 years. So, if that's to be taken as truth, then they are definitely experienced. And I have to think that that's pretty true, considering the sound quality that the Linooul does produce. And we'll talk about that in a bit. The term ZiiGaat, their name, stands for Zero In on Ideas, Innovate, Grow, and Achieve All Together. And that's a mouthful, folks. But it's backed up by the great performance of the Linooul, which is the first in a series called Pluse, not Pulse, Pluse, Pluse, that ZiiGaat is putting out, which also includes the more expensive and, with respect to driver count, more complicated Cinno, which I will review next. I have both of them. Driver complement here is a single 10mm LCP diaphragm driver. It's a single dynamic driver. The tuning aim, according to ZiiGaat, for the Linooul is to have a natural and balanced tonality. I think they have succeeded admirably. In fact, I think they have far exceeded expectations for an IEM that will set you back about less than the cost of 2 full meals at McDonald's, $24 US. Fairly easy to drive, the Linooul does benefit from a more neutral source and, of course, careful tip selection. I went with wide bore tips, my new faves for wide bores, which are the Whizzer SS20. I want to take a quick shout out to the Canuck Audioholics Review Group, Audioholics Anonymous, I should say, Canuck Audioholics Anonymous. This will be shared to the group. Fairly easy to drive. Yes, a balanced or neutral source is preferred. I went with wide bore tips, my new faves. If you can see these, which are the Whizzer SS20s. Very, very good tips. And I drove it with the E1DA 9038G S3, one of my favorite dongles, due to its ability to have a clear, very clear, almost clean room clear sound, which enables me to hear what the IEM is trying to reproduce. The Linooul is an auspicious release from a company I'm sure many have never heard of. But let's read on. Specs. Well, what's in the specs? 10mm LCP dynamic driver, single driver. Frequency response, 20 to 20 kilohertz. Impedance, 32 ohms, and it uses a 2-pin connector. So really nothing to see here. Build, fit, and quality. It's built well. It's built well. It's a well-built IEM. The shells are made of resin and are finished quite nicely in a shiny, if you can see that. Sorry, my fingerprints are there. It is a fingerprint magnet to some extent. And if we look really closely at the shell, you can barely see the inside of it. So it's a dark, smoky color with a solid black faceplate with branding on the back. Here we have the ZiiGaat. And then we have Pluse series, Z Pluse Neo on the back. So it's included well. The accessory bundle is very sparse. You get another set of tips, which actually aren't that bad. And then you get this cable. So the included accessories are of good quality, but the cable is standout. It's got a nice haptics to it, feels good. It's not going to wow you. It's not a $400 cable, but it's one that I will not throw away. It's actually done quite well. Let's put the ZiiGaat front and center now, the Linooul. The fit, I have to talk about this. Whatever they've done with the shape, the little cutouts, the little smoothness, how it's shaped, it fits beautifully. In fact, I would chance to say that this is one of the best fitting and comfortable IEMs I have had in my ears. I don't consider myself a hard to fit, but when something fits like a glove, I have to mention it. The ZiiGaat Linooul fits like a glove. Long listening sessions were not an issue. One of the few IEMs I've ever had where you can forget that you have them in your ears. Well done. Bass, let's talk about the sound. The ZiiGaat Nuo is blessed with bass that goes deep with good control and speed. There's a pleasing meatiness to the sound, much like I reviewed in recently the EPZ Q5. There's a meatiness to the sound, but the Nuo even is more controlled in the bass. And clarity is not sacrificed. Mid bass does have a slightly more emphasis than the sub bass, but the deepest registers have sufficient drive and rumble to keep up. They don't sound that they're lacking. If it's in the track, you're going to hear it. Really nice. They're not bass head. And honestly, I'm kind of happy for that. What they are, they do have a fantastic low end though. Bass is also detailed with enough texturing present to add to the listening enjoyment. When listening to Angel, one of the tracks I use for listening to and evaluating IEMs, Angel by Massive Attack, the drive of the low end was just as it should be, with the bass texture clearly audible. This is a strong driving bass, but there's a texture with it. The double bass in Robert Glasper Trio's track, In Passing is the name of the track, had me pause and repeat the track once again on the Nuo. Was relayed with great authority and admirable control. I had to play the track again to make sure I was hearing what I was. Very surprised, pleasantly surprised. Emotions Electric by Gerald Simpson continued this trend with a thumping bass line and kick drum electronic music that really was relayed and played very well on the Nuo. Latin Funk, another track by Marcus Johnson, added to the accolades. Great control and drive here. The bass does not interfere with the mid-range, and little or no bleed was heard. The ZiiGaat Nuo doesn't just have good bass for a 24 IEM. It has good bass, period. Very impressive. Mid-range. The mid-range of the Nuo is clean, open sounding with pleasing detail retrieval. We'll have macro over micro details here, but still there's some micro details present to keep things very interesting. This is overall a more balanced sounding mid-range. On first listen out of the box though, there was a crispiness and a crunchiness to the upper mids that could be audible on certain tracks when excited. 48 hours on burn-in, proper tip selection, and that pretty much disappeared. Vocals here are just slightly recessed, but exceptionally clear. Sweet Love by Anita Baker sounded as expressive as expected, with a moderate but noticeable emphasis in the upper mid-range. There is a presence lift that you'll notice. It is moderate, and it adds to the sense of detail, done tastefully in my opinion. There's no harshness or grain noted at all. Amber Navarin's vocals on Change Your Mind by Moonchild, I'm hooked on Moonchild, was clearly reproduced with all the nuances of her voice laid bare to hear. Lots of nuances in Amber Navarin's voice and her vocal delivery. Moving on to male vocals, Tenderhearted Lover by John Stoddard, another track I used to evaluate IEMs from this very gifted vocalist. Sounded great again with all the nuances of this artist's performance laid bare. If anything, there was a slight touch of chestiness in his voice that I've heard on other IEMs that was to a lesser degree on the Nuo. And I'm nitpicking here because that is basically the only negative thing I can say about the Nuo with respect to mid-range. It's mind-boggling that this $24 IEM can actually play back with a mid-range this good. I would say that the ZiiGaat Nuo is surprising in many respects, but at the forefront of all of this is layering. A $24 IEM should not layer like this. There are IEMs many times its price that don't do as well in this metric. Layering and separation are very good. Even in complex passages, the Nuo manages to keep its footing and not giving into sounding compressed or having that quote-unquote wall of sound type of presentation. This really surprised me on numerous tracks, in particular for a $24 single DD IEM using a basic LCP driver. which I believe is not that basic. This is a high quality driver that they've used. One track I used to test this layering or separation is one that's a dubious recording quality, but it's called Beautiful Lie by Vic Lavender. It's a house music track. Lots of percussion in it, lots of percussion, lots of sounds, and it's really busy. It's a prime example of a song that reproduced on many IEMs sounds thick, flat, two-dimensional. Well, the Linooul did surprisingly well, keeping all the elements separated and distinct. Timbre is also well done with the double bass, for example, particularly in the bass. On a number of jazz tracks I listened to, really standing out as being organic. In fact, the Linooul sounds more organic than it has a right to at this price once again. Dynamic passages were handled with ease, and transients were replayed well with natural leading and trailing edges. The Linooul has an open and lively mid-range presentation that really satisfies. Treble. The treble of the ZiiGaat Linooul is moderately well extended with adequate detail retrieval. There is a lively but controlled treble presentation here. Still, very treble sensitive folks may find something to talk about, but I found the treble to be quite pleasing. When pushed hard, the treble can become strained. This is higher than average volume levels with very treble heavy tracks. You can notice slight hardening or strain in the treble when pushed hard, but only when pushed further than what I would consider normal, comfortable listening volumes. There is ample air and sparkle here, with an openness to the high end that really complements the rest of the frequency range. Imaging and soundstage. Well, the ZiiGaat Neo throws up a moderately sized soundstage with solid imaging. Its layering and separation qualities here are on display here with great space and air between instruments. It's not the most expansive soundstage I've heard, or the most interesting or intimate. That would probably go to the Plunge Audio Review IM that I did recently. That being said, the Linooul does exceptionally well. This was heard on Stimula, The Coltrane by Hugh Masekela, a live, very well recorded live track I use for checking out imaging and soundstage. The effect is engaging, and I found myself pulled into this great track when listening to Linooul. The venue dimensions were very easy to discern. The instrument placement was spot on. I could pinpoint where all the instruments were. Width is beyond the ears, depth and height to a lesser degree, but still present in a very balanced way. Nicely done. Let's go verses. Let's pull in a favorite that a lot of people have been asking me. The ZiiGaat EW200, another standout IEM, but more expensive than the Linooul. Well, the EW2, I reviewed the EW200 recently and found it to be a standout IEM. In particular, when we're talking IEMs below the $50 price range. I even gave it a very strong recommendation. Then the Linooul arrived. Bass is stronger on the Linooul while being comparable with respect to speed, detail, and control, which is a strength of the EW200. The Linooul is more mid-bass oriented than the EW200, which is has a more neutral mid-bass but slightly sub-bass elevated. The Linooul also has that meatiness to the sound, to the bass, that at time I found lacking in the EW200. With respect to the mid-range, both do very well. That being said, the Linooul does edge out the EW200 when it comes to organics or organic presentation. It just edges it out. Treble is where each does very well, enough that I'm not going to really call a winner here. If I had to keep just one, and thankfully I don't have to, if I had to keep just one, it would be, which one? It would be the Linooul. It has a fuller yet well-controlled low end and more overall, in terms from top to bottom, a more organic sound presentation. This isn't taking anything away from the EW200. Fantastic IEM. ZiiGaat are on a roll. Great IEM. Just that if I had to choose between the two, it would be the Linooul. So let's conclude this review. The ZiiGaat Nuo has no right sounding like it does. At $24 US asking price, we have an IEM with an organic and engaging sound. Is it perfect? Ha! Perfect? What's that mean? There is no such thing as perfect. Only God is perfect. Otherwise, no, it's not. At the price, though, it has no right sounding this good, even at several times the price. And people will say this all the time. You will hear people say, oh, it hits well above, it punches well above. What I'm telling you, I don't like to say that too often because I know what it means. The Nuo punches well above its price range. Well above. Even at several times its price, it would still be a strong contender. ZiiGaat has put, basically, I believe ZiiGaat has put other manufacturers on notice. Other manufacturers, listen carefully. This is good. This is going to be one of the new benchmarks for its price range. It is, in my opinion. They've told the other manufacturers, get with the program and step up or step aside. The Nuo is proof positive that you don't always have to spend a lot of cash to get great sound. The ZiiGaat Nuo gets a strong recommendation from Silicon Sounds. Very strong. Excellent IEM, and one that I will continue to listen to for a long time. That in of itself, considering the amount of IEMs I get to listen to, is high praise itself. Thank you once again for being with me on this video. Again, shout out to the Canuck Audioholics Review Group based in Canada. We are a small but dedicated group of audio and music lovers first who just happen to like listening to gear and evaluating gear. We can always be contacted via our Facebook presence or our other social media presence as well. If you like this video, please thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Let's push towards 1,000 viewers or members. So invite all that you can. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.